Sydneysiders looking for a reprieve from the warm weather today might find it hard to cool off. 9 beaches have been closed after suspected tar balls washed up on the sand. Well, joining me live now is Dr. John Beves, Professor in the School of Chemistry at the University of New South Wales. Professor, thanks so much for your time. Now, there is a slight difference between these balls and the ones that washed up in Sydney's east last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we haven't had a chance to analyse these ones yet, but we've tried to get our hands on some of them to run the same sort of test that we ran last year on the ones that we found from Coogee. So I can't really say yet exactly what the makeup of these ones is down at on these northern beaches, or how it would compare to the ones that we looked at last year.
Just remind us, what exactly, once you did the testing on the tar balls that were found on the eastern suburbs beaches last year, what were they found to be?
Yeah, so each one of the balls that we looked at had a different composition. They're all made up of different types of components, but the things that were consistent were mixtures of things like cooking oils and soap scum that you would find in domestic waste or human-generated waste, and with traces of recreational drugs or pharmaceuticals and biomarkers for human waste. So the sort of things, as I say, you might find in a sewer, things that were definitely generated by humans and not from an oil spill or any other sort of natural occurrence.
Of course, they were labelled the tar balls because that's what they looked like. They were around the size of a tennis ball and they were dark in colour. These ones appear to be smaller in colour, still a circular shape, but kind of grey in appearance. Any guesses what they might be? Any idea before, of course, you've had a chance to analyse them yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, the ones that we also looked at were also different sizes and shapes and colours, and particularly when they dry out in the sun, they don't look as dark as they did when they were wet from the water. So some of the ones that we looked at originally looked very dark, almost black, but once they dried out in the lab, they do look a lot lighter. So I don't know from the ones that we see there if they're just a different colour because they're already drier, or if they're just made up of different components. Some of the things that we found in the ones that we looked at were traces of oil, like fuel oil, fossil oil, which probably made those balls look a lot darker than they otherwise would if they were just made up of cooking oil and soap scum and other things like that.
Is it quite bizarre that, I guess, before last year, we'd never kind of seen anything like this wash up on our shores before? Do we know why they are appearing? And I guess the other thing that is raising eyebrows is their perfectly circular appearance.
Yeah, so they're not all perfectly circular. I mean, at least the ones that we looked at, every one of them was slightly different in shape. But in general, the reason they end up looking more round is that they're made up of components that really want to get away from water. So everything that's in there is trying to squash together as tightly as possible to escape from the water, which is what gives them their sort of round appearance. But they're not all perfect spheres by any means. They're more like potato shaped. Every one of them is slightly different to each other. And as for why we're only noticing them now, I imagine these types of things have been washing up on our beaches for decades, and possibly they haven't really made news stories because it wasn't in such large numbers as we've seen happen last year on our eastern beaches here.
Okay, well, suddenly we'll be waiting for confirmation on what exactly is in these latest balls that have washed up on the northern beaches. But the advice, of course, is to stay away from them and keep out of the water as well until confirmed. Professor, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much.
No problem, anytime.